Welcome to another episode of the Overnight Success Podcast. I'm so excited, and I've been looking forward to this episode with Mr. Taylor Abbott. He is in San Antonio. He's an entrepreneur and an owner of 3 AlphaGraphics centers here in town. He specializes in helping local businesses stand out through print, signage, and branding, growing his company through consistency, relationships, and a clear vision for long-term impact. And I love this because Taylor moved to San Antonio in 2009 with his family and decided to take over this small little print shop and ultimately has now expanded into a franchise model. So today I'm really excited to learn more about your story from essentially couch to success. And I'm not saying you were living on the couch, but that's where we want to start from, is kind of like, what was that rags to riches story? And so I'm really excited to have you on the podcast, Taylor. Thank you so much for taking the time. And how is it going?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm super excited to be on the podcast. Been looking forward to it for the last couple of weeks, but going super well. Appreciate the opportunity here to talk with you. And I think I've got a pretty cool story, so I'm excited to share it with you guys today.
Yeah, well, let's hop right in. Let's hear it.
Okay. Well,
I know you were a
let me take it
professional
way.
hockey player, right?
Yeah, let me take it way back. So way back to me would be 2009. So that's about 16 years ago from when we're recording this. And what I was doing, my family, my dad was a minister. So I grew up as a pastor's kid, always on my best behavior. And then if that wasn't bad enough, after becoming a minister, he became a politician. So I went from being the minister's kid to the politician's kid. So as you could imagine, growing up, I always had to be on my best behavior, make all of the A's, be everybody's best friend. So interestingly enough, it set me up really good for future success because I always had to be on point. But growing up, I did in Canada, really, there's nothing else to do other than play hockey. I mean, it's 8 months of winter where I'm from, always snowing. So you can play baseball or golf for a couple months a year, but the rest of the time you're either shoveling the driveway or playing hockey. So I got pretty good at it and I turned it into a bit of a career. I grew up, I've been all over North America on a bus. I wasn't at the NHL level at the top. I was kind of somewhere in the middle. But when I was 21, I had to decide either continue playing what we called minor professional, where you make enough to survive, they give you some money and just it's enough to, pay the bills, or make a career. And at that point, my family had decided to move. My dad had retired from politics and he said, the last thing I want to do, I've been a minister, I've been a politician, I want to own my own business. So he said, why would I live in Canada where it's cold and 8 months of winter if I could live anywhere I want? And so he came down here with a business broker. He looked in California, Florida, all over. But something about San Antonio, the lifestyle, the rate, the cost of living, the taxes, everything was very appealing about San Antonio. So with a business broker, he selected a commercial printing shop that had been in business since 1983. It was called Presto Printing. And essentially, he packed up, him and my mom, my brother and my sister, so there's 5 of us in our immediate family, packed everything up and came down to San Antonio. And I decided that I'm going to try and make a business career because the hockey I could probably play until I was, 30 and then I'd retire with nothing to my name, or I could get into the business world and see if I could make it there. And so in 2009, we came down here to San Antonio as a family. So it was a 3,000 plus mile move. We put everything in a U-Haul. I had a Chevy Cobalt and I followed my family in the U-Haul all the way down through the whole United States, down to far as South Texas, so about as far as you could go. And we came here and we started doing printing. We knew nothing about it, which is really a tough thing to do when you're getting into something. Obviously, we had the benefit of it already being a functioning business, but we learned the hard way that there's a big learning curve when you're going to start a new business, especially when you haven't been a business owner before. So we purchased the business and we've seen a pretty sharp decline over the first 4 years of ownership. Like it just kept going down year after year because we really were learning it as we were doing it. But there was a point where I came in, I started doing deliveries just to help out because I was playing hockey still and kind of bouncing back and forth. And then when I was done with hockey, I came back and I talked to my dad. I said, well, let's do the family business thing. We're going to do this together. My brother and sister were still young. I'm the oldest in the family. So I said, okay, let me help you with the production. So I learned first deliveries, obviously, driving all the packages to all the clients. From there, I came into the shop and I learned kind of the production flow and the workflow. And I got a really good understanding of how the business worked, how a job comes in the front door and what's required for us to design it, work with the client, make sure that they like what they're going to get, pick all of the proper products to get it complete and then get it out the back door. And then from there, I was starting to find I really like business. And, being a former athlete, it really helped me. I was good working with the team, good at having goals. And I told my dad, I was like, man, I want to take on more responsibility because I want to make some more money. I was just making, very, very small paycheck. And he said, well, I mean, if you want to learn how to do QuickBooks, we could have some help with that. So I said, oh, heck, I'll learn QuickBooks. So I hired a little QuickBooks coach that would come in every couple times a week and teach me QuickBooks. And so I went from doing the deliveries to being the kind of the production manager to being the bookkeeper. And then from there, I said to my dad, it had been another year or so. And I said, man, I still want to make more money. And he said, well, there's nothing left to do but learn how to sell, because if you can sell, I'll give you a commission. And he said, with the commission, there's really no cap in sight. So as much as you can sell, that's how much money you can make. And, I was an athlete, but I was still pretty introverted, pretty shy. I was fine being, behind the doors, working on the numbers or making sure that the jobs got done. But I decided to give selling a try. And I think that was my hidden talent that I had no idea was deep within me. And until I was kind of forced to do it, I didn't know that it was something I could do. But one of the favorite stories I tell people is my first month of selling. I sold him over a whole month of business. And it was at the time about $1 million business. I sold $750 worth of printing over a whole month, my first month, which, that's obviously not very good. If the business is doing, about 100,000 a month and you only sell $750, that's not very good. But after, I think I hit one of my first big record months in about 2022. So this would have been about 6 years later. I sold over $120,000 by myself in one month. So it was a huge gap of going from being scared to walk out of the office to being able to sell $120,000. But what that is all of that learning in between. And, I had a lot of success with what we call model, mimic, and master. And I like to find people that had already accomplished what I wanted to in my field and had already written about it, had already talked about it, and already laid out a plan that I could literally just model it until I mastered it. And that was a really big way that helped me get to where I was with sales. So I wanted to start with that. And then, after that, Christy, do you still have me? Are we still connected?
I was just about to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I think I
Okay.
lost you for a second, but I heard
Awesome.
you. I just couldn't see you.
Okay. So yeah, so that was kind of just understanding that you can't do it all by yourself. Like if I would have just sat in that office and tried to sell printing without getting help, I couldn't have done it. So I found, obviously that's when YouTube started getting big. This was probably in around 2015, 2016, 2017. And I called it, YouTube University. I'm sure everybody's heard that. But I didn't listen to music. I just ate up YouTube videos of sales and learning how to have charisma and learning how to talk with people. And the amount of learning you can get without having to pay for it is unbelievable, especially even now. It's 2025 now. So this was 10 years ago that I was doing this. And I think if you have that thirst and that hunger for it, it's really easy to just sit there and learn, because when you put it into action and you start seeing it work, it's very exciting. And I really started to believe in, I didn't, when I started, I was a hockey player. I didn't care about printing. I didn't care about, graphic design, but I started to find the passion when I started to see the value that it was providing to the people that we worked for. And when we would have someone come in and they'd say, well, this is my new Ford Transit van that I got from my plumbing company. And they'd say, I just want it to look cool. I'd say, well, the first thing that's exciting is that you're coming in and we're going to give you a mobile billboard, right? You're going to be paying us one time and you're going to have this billboard. It's like a salesperson that works 24/7. It never goes to sleep. When it's parked out in front of your house, it's working. When you're driving, it's working. When you're at your neighbor's place doing work, it's working. And we take this guy's blank white van. It's a free canvas. We have our whole team have some fun with it. And we produce this amazing, beautiful vehicle wrap. And you get to see the people's expression when they drop off a white van and come back to seeing their brand, their identity, and their logos all over a van. And it's a really cool experience to see people get excited like that. But I think from there, it's just really learning the business and building a process. I think where we started to get successful is in 2015 is when we joined the franchise model. And so talking about that a little bit, that was where I kind of told you that we were learning the business, but declining because we didn't know what we were doing. But we said, everything we do is a franchise. Everywhere we eat is a franchise. Everywhere we shop is a franchise. maybe we need to be a franchise because we were literally had a handbook that the old owner had gave us. We had our manager that the had stayed in place, and she was telling us that this is how it works, and we just believed her and trusted her, but it just wasn't working. So when we decided our last ditch effort, things were not going well, we said, well, let's see, maybe the last thing we can do is join a franchise. So we joined what's called the AlphaGraphics franchise 2015. And it was revolutionary, I'll tell you, because what the franchise model does is they provide you a process and a blueprint to success. It's a proven model, it's laid out step by step, and they give it to you, and you just have to follow it. And that's all you got to do. I mean, I'm making it sound simple. Obviously, it's harder than that. But whether or not you want to have the model given to you, or you're developing one, I think it's very important from the start to have a process that you can come back to day after day, refine that process, and then just execute on it Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the more that you get those reps in, it's like going to the gym, the stronger that muscle becomes and the stronger the business becomes. So the franchise model has been really powerful for us. So taking it from there, that was 2015. We joined the franchise and we instantly had success. Over the next 2 years of owning that individual location, we doubled our sales. And it's a big part in just having that guidance. We added a bunch of products, a bunch of services that we didn't even know that we could offer. For example, we used to just print business cards, letterheads, and envelopes. And I bet anybody listening to this podcast today, you probably are not going to be going out and ordering business cards, letterheads, or envelopes anymore. So thank goodness we stopped only offering that. If someone said, could I get a banner? I'd say, no, go to the banner store. If they said, could I get a t-shirt? I'd say, no, go to the t-shirt store. We only make business cards, letterheads, and envelopes. And as you can see, that's why the business was declining. But the franchise really showed us, here's how you make a banner. Here's how you make a t-shirt. Here's how you do a vehicle wrap. Here's the machines that you need to get. Here's the price you should pay for it. Now that you're part of the franchise, here's the buying power that you get being part of our group. And so they really paved the way for us to be successful through the tools and the resources that were provided. And then it was just up to us to put in the work. And so then in 2022, I had gotten pretty good at sales. I had my first $1 million sales year, just my own personal sales, $1 million plus. And I had started saving my income. And so I told my family, I said, I want to expand. And so we said, well, let's see what we got to do. So we talked to the franchise, and there was another owner in town that had an existing location, and he was ready to sell. So I was able to use my income that I had built up from selling to buy my own location. And that was in 2022. So now we had the one my parents owned and the one that I own. And they both kind of specialize in different things. So that's how we got into our vehicle wraps and our large scale signage, which we didn't have the machinery before the acquisition. And it really expanded us into another whole world of printing and production here in San Antonio. So it was extremely good. And that just really was like when you have that engine running and you bolt on a new part that gives it that turbo boost or that extra speed. And it helped us get another ramp and another ramp up. And from there, we doubled the business, added a lot more employees, and we went from 8 employees to about 15. And then just this year in 2025, we made another expansion. So we opened and this is more of our startup phase, you could say, but we opened up a new one from scratch in the downtown San Antonio area. So obviously we had a huge benefit in already owning the other 2 locations to start this one up. I could imagine there's a lot of people that do start these franchises with no experience like we did from zero. And I could just see that being a real tough challenge, because even having all the knowledge we have now, having the firepower of the 2 locations, this new startup, man, it's tough. You got to go from zero. I mean, you have a lease bill that's due, you have the lights that you got to pay. All of that stuff is due, and they don't care if you sell $100 or 100,000. They need that money. And when you're new, it's hard to get to that 100,000 because usually everybody only wants those $50. Nobody trusts you yet. So you got to build that trust. You got to build that, that belief and that understanding. So it's been about 8 months, 8 months now that we've had the new location. And, it takes month by month effort and a month by month grind to make sure that it's going to be successful. And it's a real full scale effort. But again, we have those processes in place. We can plug in, if we add a new employee, we only have a small crew at the new downtown location, but we have the process. We say, hey, this is how you do A, B, C. And it can be as simple as, how to turn on the lights and how to lock the door at night, because it's as funny how you wouldn't believe people might leave the door unlocked and nobody knows because there just wasn't a process in place. So If I could give one really big thing about building your startup or founding a company or going from being, just find that really good process, write it down, record it, test it. And then once you know it works, just keep executing it and make sure that it's clear, concise, and something that you can share with anybody that's going to come and help you on your journey. So I would say, yeah, it's just wasn't easy. I know the overnight success is a little bit tongue in cheek because obviously it's been, yeah, over 15 years to get to this point. And obviously the first years were very tough and there was many times we wanted to quit, but there's always a way to find a way through. If you care enough and you want it bad enough, you're always going to find a way, because the only way you lose is if you quit, and you don't quit unless you choose. So if you want to keep pushing through it, you'll always find a way. But yeah, that's kind of the basic story from, I guess you could say, from Canada to success, if you want to call
Yeah.
it that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. That's fun. I do have some questions. I want to pull on some threads here. It's such a big leap to choose to leave your home country and pack up your family and come here and start a family business too. And also at this time, a lot of technology companies are taking off versus brick and mortar. And so I feel like coming through your story with you has been really neat. So a couple of things. I saw a lot of willingness to learn, which I think is super important when we look at scaling, because there's things that you just don't know that you don't know, right? I really liked the phrase, and I've never heard it, but model, mimic, and master. And so as you talk through processes, and I have a few things I want to ask on here, but I'll dig into this one first. As you talk about having a process even from turning on the lights and locking the door at night is how do you model, mimic, and master a process if you don't know what that process is? How do you
So
define
I
that?
think I think that's where as you as the founder, as the person that's creating you have to test and you have to sample things. So maybe one day you turn on the lights coming from and then you walk around the office to the left and hit everything from the left and go around in a circle. Then maybe the next day you come in and you go counterclockwise. Maybe the next day you come in, you go straight in, straight back. And I'm a little bit of I'm really obsessed with like metrics and stats. So I like to write everything down. I like to say, like, how many emails did I send today? Well, how many was I send that? And then I asked myself, why did I send 50 more emails yesterday than I did today? And I use things like that of just being very meticulous and tracking and recording everything that I was working on or focusing on, and trying to statize it, try and make it something that's visual, and understand what was leading to the best results. So I think when it comes to a process, there's nothing wrong with trying 5, 6 different ways, but you have to make sure that you're recording it, understanding what you're doing that's different each time you try a new method. And then when you find success, record that. And then if it's working over and over, then stick with it and move on to the next process, right? So you can always refine your process, make it better. But I think when you're starting out, come up with your 3 best ideas, try your 3 ones, record what happened, take notes on it, and then go with the one that works, write it down, make it easy to understand how you got from A to B or A to Z, and then move on to the next one and just keep building that out for every step of the business, whether it's, from sales, operations, production, management, HR, payroll, even, there's anything you do, you can put a process to it, record it, and find something that's going to work for you and your team.
I love that. Model, mimic, and master. We're going to keep that one. The other one I wanted to talk through a little bit is your sales background. So I think a lot of times working with over 100 founders at this point, a lot of them are afraid to sell. And so from what I heard in your story is you were introverted. You didn't know what you didn't know, so you decided to learn and you used YouTube, but you also have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone, right? And push forward. And so I guess I have 2 questions. One being, do you have a tip, not necessarily behind a process, but more of just like a tip to selling that our audience might benefit from? And the other question is like, how did you decide, other than, and maybe this is the answer, but other than, I just want to make more money? Because I think to your point is you only fail if you quit, and you decided you wanted more. And so that more led into now 2 more locations. And so, yeah, I'll stop there because I don't want to ramble, but do you remember my 2 questions?
Yeah, I'd say, well, I think the thing that I didn't realize was I had a real gift hidden inside me for talking with people. I could walk in. I was I would rather be behind a computer. I don't want to answer the phone. I don't want to handle that because a lot of the nature of the printing business is everything's different every day. So there's a lot of, mistakes, changes. People are like, well, I said to print this and you print. So I was used to being from the management perspective. It was always something was wrong. I was putting out a fire. And I didn't realize from the sales perspective, it's actually fun because you're getting to help people in the moment. They come to you with a or with a problem and you get to offer a solution. And it's fun. It's actually, even though it doesn't sound like it, sales is an extremely creative aspect of work. You get to think about what they came to you with, what they propose. You get to think about angle A, B, C, which would be best for the client. You have price, price A, price B, price C. Let me tell you, all three could be good, but I would recommend B because of this. But if you don't agree, we can still do C because this, and that. And it's very fun. It's like putting a puzzle together. It's like almost like sometimes I call it like the canvas of selling. You start with that blank canvas, the client comes in, and you almost paint the sale with them and come out on their side. And I didn't realize any of that until I actually had to do it. And then, of course, what we do, it's very easy to see the value that's added to others because you almost, I call it the look. Like you put something really unique, a unique business card, for example, or you give someone their new company T-shirts for their brand new company, and they open them in the box, and you just see that. I call it the look, that expression on their face. They just light up. They're like, "Wow, like this is my business. I thought up, and it's real. Now I have a shirt." And so you almost get fed, energized, juiced up by seeing the responses and the way that people receive your solution to their problems. I almost got hungry just for more and more of that. The bigger it got, the bigger the projects became. We went from helping, small businesses to one of our more unique projects was wrapping the Toyota field, the soccer field here in town. We did a gigantic graphic across the whole field. So we went from, small things like a little wall in an office conference room to wrapping a sports field. And it's just that was all from learning how to help people every way you work your way up the ladder, get to bigger and bigger deals. And I just always have a hunger to see what is the potential that I can get to. Selling it's almost limitless. So that's why I never get tired of it because, what can I sell tomorrow? What's the new big project that's coming down the line? What can we do? And it's just, I don't know, it energizes me to go for wake up the next day and see what we can do tomorrow.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, I actually enjoy sales as well. I think it is a fun, as long as you're truly solving a problem for the person, right? You're not like trying to
Yeah,
sell snake oil, but I
right.
think that sales is it's a people component of really helping them get the results that they want. You're providing them that look. Like I could imagine that's the like, yes, this is so cool. So, I think it's interesting too, as you talk about sales, oftentimes, we try to not convince, but we try to encourage people to niche down. So you started in a niche and you had 3 offerings and you recognized that print industry was kind of dwindling, right? And
Right. Yeah.
so would you have been able to expand had you not joined the franchise world? And what was it like to go from this 1983 print shop into a franchise model and taking that and transitioning through that? I'd love to hear a little bit more context and story behind that if you don't mind sharing.
Absolutely. So I think if you could if you could just imagine, going from you have this business, you've kind of developed it along the way. Things are running, but they're not running smooth. Every day is stressful and you see the numbers dwindling and you just have you're losing hope. It's you walk into the shop, you're like, man, nothing's working. Oh, there's another angry client. Oh, there's the sales. Wow, they're down again this month. And it's like a cloud, and that's kind of where we were at. We were at the part where we are just like, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it because it's not working. And at that point, honestly, I don't know if we could have done it without somebody giving us some guidance because we really honestly didn't know what we were capable of. Like we had all of these assets that were hidden in a sense, and we were so bogged down in the day to day of just trying to make what we have work. We didn't even know what to look for to make it better. We were just trying to survive with what we had. So I think making that conversion to the franchise was like almost having those clouds lifted or those hidden assets revealed, like a scratch off lottery card almost. And it's just like all of this stuff was hiding behind these walls that we were too focused on the one road we were on to branch off the path and see what else was possible. And it's just like, not only did they not show us what we could do, they showed us how to do it. So they said, here's what you can do. Here's what you need to buy to do it. And now here's the process, the steps, and the ways to execute on making it work. And then when you're done, not only do you offer this service, you can tell your clients you can do this, 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 and that too. And now we've went from selling a client one line item to being able to offer them 9, 10, 11 line items, which before we just weren't, that's not what our mindset was, just do what we were asked, get the job done, and then hope somebody comes in tomorrow and asks for another job. And they gave us guidance from everything from, sales to production to store management to inventory and supply management and all these things that we just, it's so hard when you're a small business with all these things going on to know what to do and do it the right way. And especially if you start doing it the wrong way and just keep doing it that way, it gets worse and worse. So it's just a proven model, a proven way to do what works. And that's what was a big revolution from joining the franchise, and probably the thing that saved us. And that's why I'm still talking with you guys today, all these years later.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. So I guess twofold question. Uh, Third location opened up this year, which is when I met you, and it's been cool to see the growth and the expansion, and now understanding even a little bit more of your story of how it got here. Because to your point, we all know it's not an overnight success. It takes a lot of work, but all of a sudden there's this like momentum that's happening, right? So I'd love
Mhm.
to hear why downtown San Antonio for a print shop, and then secondly, what is next for AlphaGraphics?
Okay. Well, why downtown? So obviously, San Antonio is a major tourist city. And everything that comes here, there's a new conference every 3 days. There's all these major events. We have, like, for example, the Day of the Dead Riverwalk Parade coming up, the Thanksgiving parade, the Christmas parade, and every single event you go to, think about all of the signage that you don't even notice you're seeing. We've got banners, we've got directional signs, we've got sign specific menus, we've got all of this stuff, and it all happens right here in downtown San Antonio, and it's turning over constantly. And so we offer every single one of these products that make an event great. And so we wanted to center ourselves very close to the convention center. So we're on, it's called North Alamo Street and 3rd Street. And so right off of Broadway, right by the Alamo. And it's very easy for people coming from, say, Chicago, Los Angeles in for a conference, and they have these 7 signs they need made. Now they can call us here at Alpha Graphics downtown and they can say, can you have us these signs? And we say, yeah, we'll have them in 3 hours and we'll deliver them to your hotel for free because we offer free local delivery. Why? Because we can walk to every single hotel and deliver stuff in about 2 minutes from where we're at. So I think it's just a really huge market that we're capitalizing on from all of the turnover. There's something new happening here every day, and that's why downtown's great. We love the Riverwalk. We love the city, and even things like Project Marvel, looking at stuff like that. And if this downtown takes off like we really believe it will, then I think that's why we want to be positioned in the center of the boom. And it's already booming, but I think there's a bigger boom coming. So that's kind of how we chose downtown.
That's awesome. And so then is there thoughts of expansion, or are you good with 3
Yeah, well,
locations?
no. So for me, I mean, if we're being real, raw, and honest on the podcast here, I want to have the thing that's great about a franchise model is you can place it anywhere you want, and it's essentially you have that model, you have that guidance. So I'm a big golfer. I love playing golf, and as I expand and increase my capabilities, I would love to have a franchise in all of my favorite golf cities. And so that I'd have to have an excuse to buy my Alpha Graphics jet, and then I'd have to fly to all my favorite cities just to make sure and check on all of our businesses to make sure that they're functioning and running and following the system. So ultimately, yeah, I'd love to have like 15 or 20 of them, and just kind of be the overseer, from a 400-foot level overview, making sure that everything's running smooth.
I love this vision. Simon Sinek talks about start with why, and that vision was powerful. You're like, I love this. It's a passion. So therefore, if I can place this there, I conveniently have to go check it out too. And I imagine that would be a Alpha Graphics jet wrap, the
Absolutely, yeah. I could
airplane,
I could
right?
I
So
could change it every couple months, and it would just be a write off. I hope.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's cool. Awesome. And I can tell you too that I have had to do some emergency prints here and downtown in San Antonio, and I didn't have great printing resources in the last 2 years. And so now I know where to go, obviously.
Absolutely.
There's some other printers in town. I'm not dissing anybody, but not
No.
downtown.
Yes.
So you're in the right spot, I think. And that's cool that you scope that out and you offer that really good customer service and that value add. And so Kind of starting to wrap up here. I think a lot of founders, when they're in that gray season and they're like, it's just not working. How do we make this work? And they start to hit either burnout or boredom. How do they continue to move through that? And I say they, but more specifically, how did you decide to continue to move through that?
Well, I could tell you there was probably I feel like there's a good 3 years where I really went all in on work. And I know it might sound crazy, but I had such a passion and such a desire to make this thing work that I didn't have deal with that burnout that a lot of people say they do. But I think I really had that care and that passion and that drive and that desire to make it work. And I was there early mornings, late nights, and that didn't bother me because I was chasing my dream. I was going after what I wanted to get. And when that's your purpose, when that's your vision and you have it all, I'm a big goal setter, a big dreamer, a big visionary. And I have that on my wall in my office. I know where I want to go. I have those 15 locations and I see it every day. And I know when I get to work, hey, it's going to be a tough day, but I have that to look forward to. That's where I'm going. And that's what got me through. So I know I might have a special case where I really do have that deep driven passion and that hunger and that desire. And I can tell you from my personal experience that that's what's always pulled me through is knowing that if I don't quit, then there's no one that's going to stop me because I'm the last person that's going to stop myself. And so it's ultimately up to me. So every day I take that next step forward. Some days it's one step, some days it's 10 steps. You can get that jet fuel boost, and you can take off or you can feel like someone grabbed you by the collar and pulled you back. But at the end of the day, you get another chance tomorrow. And until I don't wake up that next day, I'm just going to keep pushing forward until I get. And it's just where's that potential, right? For me, it's all about potential. I don't really have an end goal, but I just love to see how big I can take that potential. And that's what's pulled me through. So there was a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, but obviously it was worth it because we're on not that we're made it by any means, but from where it's come from, it's a long ways. And that's just from being dedicated, caring, and knowing that if you don't quit, then you don't have to stop.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Thanks for sharing that. And so you had mentioned earlier that you kind of put your head down and you learned through YouTube University too. What kind of, do you have like a best practice or a tip or a resource that you would recommend? I know your specialty is behind sales and you're involved in printing and franchising. So I feel like you have a nice breadth of knowledge to offer. So if you were to give the listeners something to take away here as like maybe there's somewhere they can go look for resources, where would you might guide them?
Well, let me say this instead of giving a specific. I think what I learned early on when I had such a hunger for knowledge, I would listen to everybody. I'd listen to Jim, Joe, Mike, Bill, and then Jim would say, do this. Joe would say, do that. Mike would say, do this. And then I'd say, well, they all three said different things. So then I got frozen and I did nothing. So I think what's really important is to find the mentor that at least has done something that you feel like you're trying to do, somebody that's done the same thing ahead of you and I would say go all in, drink their Kool-Aid, take it all in and focus on those one, maybe two mentors. Don't have 15 because you're going to get stuck in confusion. You're going to have 15 different people saying, do this, do that. And then you do nothing because you're frozen. You don't want to make that one mad. You think that was a good idea, but maybe that was too. So if you can really, put your faith and your trust in somebody that you feel is giving you the right advice, then just go all in on what they say and don't get bogged down with 13 different people telling you 13 different things. So pick your three favorite people and go all in on those people until you exhaust their resources. See if it's got you where you want to go. And if it did, then maybe that's when it's time to get on to your next level of mentors. But always focus, go all in on what those people have to offer and just really pay attention to it. Do what they say and don't get stuck going down 6 different roads at the same time. That's what I would say.
That is excellent advice. I love that a lot. Okay, and so next question is going to be, is there anything that you feel that I should have asked you that I didn't that we can talk about now?
I would say the one other thing that was really big for us as a family, not just for me and myself, but coming here from Canada, essentially we signed papers that said if our business doesn't succeed, then we have to move out of the country and go back to Canada. So if you can give yourself a big enough why, like if we quit, essentially we were quitting on our life here and our being here in the United States. So that gave us another huge edge of like, yeah, we want to quit, but there's a big consequence if we don't. So maybe that's an investment or whatever it may be. But if you can give yourself that real reason that if you quit, it's going to be painful, then it just gives you no reason but to succeed. So, if you're going to go all in on something, go all in, and make the risk and swing for the fences. And if it doesn't work, you can always do another startup.
Yeah. I like that. Fail fast, fail often, but you were refusing to fail. So you just were learning it on along the way, which is super
Yep.
cool. So last question before we wrap up is how would you define success? I think I heard a little bit about like what is success and maybe what that looks like as a visioneer, but is there a way that you define success and what does that look like?
So I would say, yeah, for me, it's not an end destination, but I keep coming back to the word potential. And it's like, what is my true
I lost you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, hold on. I'm emailing you.
Yeah, so success to me, I've really thought about it, but it's not for me, it's not a number, it's not a destination, it's not a certain target. I've touched on this word before, but it's really about potential and trying to fulfill my potential, which of course none of us know what our potential is. We have so much that we can offer, so much that we can give. So I guess maybe if I think about success, it would be looking at the path and the journey that I've went on and seeing all of the wins along the way. Obviously, there's a lot of losses, but if I look at all the wins, they all stack up. And to me, that's a success that I can always fall back on and something that makes me feel good on a bad day. But at the end of the day, I just want to fulfill my potential, and that's what keeps me going every day and keeps me coming back for more. So success, I guess, to me is when you get those wins and with little or big, it's just something that gives you a little more confidence to go on and try again the next day to do even better.
I love that. I am totally here for all the potential. I see that in so many people. And I think that to your point is they got to kind of believe in themselves too. And so I think that's a perfect place to kind of end this episode. Taylor, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So I think probably the best way to see me directly, if you're looking for the business perspective, I'm pretty big on LinkedIn. I do a lot of cool posts. Obviously, everything is very visual, so gets a lot of activity there on LinkedIn. So follow me there, and then Instagram at TCABBOTT7, TC Abbott 7. That's my Instagram, and from there you'll find all of my business pages as well. And again, like I said, everything's very creative, very visual, very fun to look at. Very big on Instagram and LinkedIn. And then, of course, we have all of the standard websites. You can search AlphaGraphics San Antonio and you'll find us as well. But we're in every corner of the city. So if you guys need anything print, design, marketing, signs, or vehicle wraps, go ahead and search us up on the internet. And probably you'll get me on the phone or one of my awesome teammates, and we'll take that vision and make it a reality.
I love that. And one question is, do you go outside of San Antonio? Because this podcast does reach a larger audience than just Texas.
Absolutely. Well, that's amazing because, yes, we do ship nationwide. We're a FedEx shipping hub. So we're sending shipments from right here all across the globe, in fact. So, yeah, we're shipping everywhere every day.
Okay, amazing. Well, Taylor, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. This was insightful for me, and I know our guests, our audience will appreciate it as well. So, with that being said, this is another episode of the Overnight Success Podcast where we got to hear a story from a founder that really took the leap, and it was very exciting to learn how you learned along the way and you're finding that success. And I can't wait to see that AlphaGraphic jet plane flying around and visiting all those different locations. I think that's super cool. So with that, if you liked this podcast, please like and subscribe and make sure you share with your friends and family because that's how we continue to grow. And we are going to continue to share those overnight success stories. So thank you again, Taylor.
Thank you. Appreciate you.